single most important thing that I want to focus on is lifting up and identifying and working with and training the next generation of leadership, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And that's really the central goal of our foundation. It's going to be based in Chicago, my hometown, but we want to have projects, programs, partnerships, and digital networks everywhere. And I'm not just lending my name to the foundation, I'm going to be an active part of it. This year I've already met with young people like yourselves in Germany, in Indonesia, in Brazil, and then we had our first ever Obama Foundation Summit in Chicago. And I don't want to speak too long because I want to spend most of our time on questions, and Anshul is going to help to moderate it. But I did want to mention the reason I thought it was so important to do something in India. You've got the largest population of young people in the world, and that's a lot, so we might as well start big. We've already identified some remarkable young leaders who are doing extraordinary things here in India, authors, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, civic leaders from all across the country. We've got activists who are working on everything from education to gender equality to climate change. A couple of young leaders were recently with us in Chicago, and I just want to acknowledge them. Trisha Shetty started, where is she? There she is. Did you have fun in Chicago? Oh, see there, now, I didn't call on her to say that, but thank you. But Trisha started an organization called She Says, aimed at educating and empowering men and women to take action against sexual abuse. Also joining us in Chicago was Sanchana Krishnan, who works with communities to destigmatize mental health issues through the power of personal storytelling. There you are, there you are. And here in India, we've got young leaders like Kuldeep Dantewadia, who's building, where's Kuldeep? There he is. He's building this country's first, what he calls Solve Squad, of 17,500 young people so far who are driving change at the local level all across India. So the point is that these young people are already showing the power that anybody has if they take the initiative and have the courage, as Anshul said, to drive change, to make a difference. And there have never been more powerful, more accessible tools for each of you to make a difference than there are today. And in fact, I would argue, and I mentioned this in my speech earlier this morning, there's never been a better time to be a young person. I mean, it's always good being young, by the way. But if you think about it, if you had to choose a moment in history in which you could be born, and you didn't know ahead of time who you were going to be, you didn't know what your status would be, you didn't know whether you were going to be male, female, Indian or American, you didn't know whether you were going to be gay, straight, you didn't know whether you were going to be rich or poor, what caste you might be a member of, what religion. So you're just a human, and you had to choose when to be born. You choose now. Because as troubled as our politics are, as difficult as the world can seem when you're watching the newscasts, the fact is that over the past 100 years, we've come from a world where only a small fraction of women could vote to a world where almost every woman can. Since 1950, the global average life expectancy has grown by more than 20 years. Since 1990, I mean, that's not that long ago. I was in law school in 1990. We've cut extreme poverty and childhood mortality in half. Much of that, by the way, in India and China. Since 2000, we've evolved from a world without marriage equality to one in which it's a reality in more than 24 countries. The fact is, the world has never been healthier. It has never been wealthier. And despite terrible conflicts that are still taking place around the world, and remarkable cruelty and suffering, the world is actually less violent and more tolerant than it's ever been. Fewer people are dying young. More people are living not only longer but better. More girls are attending school. More adults can read. More children have the vaccines that they need. And the point is that none of this happened just because of luck. It happened because people chose to make it happen. And many of those people, working over the course of many years, started without power or wealth or title. And many of them were extraordinarily young, just like you. I always have to remind people that when you think of somebody like Dr. Martin Luther King, who did so much in our country, he was 24, 25 years old when he began as an activist in Montgomery, Alabama, to try to desegregate the South. And he started in small steps, and it was only a few years later where he won the Nobel Prize and would help to revolutionize America. But it wasn't just Dr. King, it was all these young people around him who were just like us. You know, they had their flaws, they had their problems, they had their doubts, but despite all those imperfections, they pressed forward anyway, often far from the limelight, with determination and with faith in the future, because they believed that their efforts would matter and that they would be part of this upward trajectory in our human story. So that's the legacy that is available to you should you choose to grab it. That should inspire each of you to keep pushing for progress in whatever field you're in and whatever communities that you live in, knowing that your efforts matter. And I hope that all of you stay engaged after this session and are prepared to work with each other and work with us, and let other young leaders know about how we can continue to build up a community of change around the world.
Arunachal region, China has come back with this fresh provocation. Investigation by your channel has revealed shocking details. A sinister plot by the dragon to choke India of every drop of water from the Brahmaputra. Speaking to your channel, the locals revealed sordid accounts of depleting resources and increasing pollution in the river due to Chinese tunnel works. Before we go across to Arindam, before we go across live to Arindam, this is the ground report.
We are on the bank of river Siang at Pasighat in Arunachal Pradesh. This river flows in from China and is known as Sangpo in Tibet, Siang in Arunachal Pradesh, and becomes Brahmaputra when it enters Assam. Now this river is flowing all muddy since past 2 months, and there are reports of large-scale fish deaths. The locals are very much concerned by this unusual development. They fear that something unusual is happening on the Chinese side of this river, which has led to this development. The MP from Arunachal East constituency, Ninong Ering, has written a letter to the Prime Minister of India, stating that probably China is constructing a massive tunnel and massive excavation work is going on this river, which has led to this development. He has urged the government of India to take up the matter with the Chinese counterpart and hold a tripartite level meeting on this issue. Now this unusual development with Siang River has also sparked protests here in Arunachal Pradesh, with local student bodies taking to the streets and submitting a memorandum to the Prime Minister of India, urging the Indian government to take the matter with the Chinese counterpart as soon as possible.
From the startup space, talks between Flipkart and Walmart seem to have gathered steam, with Bloomberg reporting that the US e-tailer is in talks to ingest $1 billion into India's largest e-commerce player. Chanda Srikanth with details.
Yesterday, we told you that there is a lot of speculation about Walmart showing interest in Flipkart. Today, Bloomberg reports that Walmart might inject $1 billion into Flipkart, taking a minority stake in the e-commerce player. Remember, this comes on close on the heels of Walmart picking up a minority stake in China's JD.com. and also comes at a time when Flipkart is in an intense battle for dominating the market vis-a-vis Amazon. Now, we have been speaking to our sources as well. While they did confirm that talks are on between Flipkart and Walmart, they say that this is still at very early stages. So too early to say if any deal will fructify over the next few days. But we really have to watch this space closely. Remember, earlier there was talk of Alibaba as well. But however, that hasn't moved forward due to valuation reasons. We have to wait and see if Walmart will. And it could also become a strategic partner to Flipkart in terms of the technology and knowledge transfer that happens. Economic Times reported today that Walmart is in talks to take a minority stake in Flipkart, pitting it directly against its bigger rival here, Amazon. Now, if these talks really go off well, it couldn't have come at a better time for Flipkart, because remember, it has been fending off competition from Amazon. There have also been talks that it's perhaps using up funds at a fast pace. We really have to wait and see how these talks progress going forward, because there's been a lot of buzz that Alibaba will also be interested in Flipkart. But ET also reports that a meeting is scheduled with Walmart over the next few days. So we really have to wait and see how that pans out. Remember, Walmart recently picked up a stake in China's JD.com. So perhaps they will look to do something similar in India as well.
I think India still does much better than many, many other countries in the world. And let me take, it's a wide spectrum. I mean, you do not have a country where you have 100 million families impacted by the self-help group movement, of which 85% of that self-help group people are women.
Out of which 20 million are in Telangana.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So you move from there to the whole entrepreneurship thing. And, I think India's economic structure is changing. It's no longer just a manufacturing or a services economy. It's now becoming an entrepreneurship economy, an economy of value chains, which gives women more and more enablement to create their own niche and to start their own careers. And what bigger testimony than to say that in India we are able to put up a platform where more than 50% participants are women today, sitting right here.
Fantastic. Big round of applause to the ladies, the women entrepreneurs who showed up at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit.
And then let me take this little further to say that it's India that has produced, sportswomen in fields that get us medals and, things like wrestling and gymnastics, which were so far, typified as being men's sports. Today, India has women fighter pilots in the Indian Air Force. Today, it's Indian Navy that has started an all-woman circumnavigation around the world, just as an expedition. Today, India has a defense minister who's a lady. Today, India has, senior ministers who are ladies, and there is no country in the world where 40% of the banking sector is headed by women.